and pledge. Please stand.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, please be with us this morning. Please be with us during this holy week. Please be with the children that we saw this morning during expulsion hearings. Let us do everything that we do in your name, and remember that the environment that some of our kids are in, Lord, please be with them. Let us realize the best part of their day is during the school day, a lot of times. Be with us each and every day. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen.
Address the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Clemency. I'll ask for the adoption of the agenda for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. None. Motion passes. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's good to see y'all. I will hand it over to Mr. Superintendent at the moment.
Yes, Madam Chair, at this time, so I'm happy to bring up, so we have Miss Robin Hurst. So she's in our second year at Chiefland Elementary, and she's going to talk about the Teachers of Tomorrow Club. So,
Mrs. Hurst, thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
good morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I am going to visibly shake. Standing in front of a room full of adults instead of children is not my comfort zone, but I am very excited to be here and happy to share what I've started this year at Chiefland Elementary School, and it is the Tot Club, which represents Teachers of Tomorrow. The reason why I started, I'm probably going to completely go off of this. This is my 22nd year teaching. I taught for 20 years in Broward County, and then my husband and I needed to get away to a little bit more quiet environment, which we found our perfect place in Chiefland. And so this is my second year. I'm a lead teacher, and I teach 4th grade. I knew, when I was in 5th grade, I got the experience. I think it was even called Tot. All of this club stuff up to this point is all based off of my experiences, what I got to do, and what made me decide that I wanted to be a teacher. When I was in 5th grade, I got to go into a kindergarten classroom and experience with, visibly shaking, sorry, got to experience helping students, reading to them, helping them with sight words, solving math problems, learning how to run the projector on the wheel, all kinds of stuff. And it made me decide that is what I want to do for the rest of my life, because I'm very passionate about teaching. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the Teachers of Tomorrow Club will encourage students' interests in a teaching career and develop positive attitudes towards teachers and learning. So that is, the goal is to get these kiddos, and I've included 4th and 5th grade students to be able to have that experience to maybe ignite a passion for teaching in the future. Thank you. I don't want to read word for word. So basically, and the students were given us an application, if they were interested, to be able to fill out and apply to be in the Tot Club. It would be 30 minutes once a week. They were chosen based off of, the requirements were that they needed to have at least a C average in all of their classes. They needed to be consistently completing their work on time, so that would not cause an issue of them missing the 30 minutes a week. And they were to do an experience once a week and log it so that we could talk about their experiences. And we have cooperating teachers. Our cooperating teachers are kindergarten, 1st and 2nd. And as I mentioned, it's only for 4th and 5th grade students at this time. I have 25 students participating as of right now and 11 cooperating teachers. So I think that was that. So things that we've discussed at our monthly meetings. They meet with me once a month. To discuss what they've experienced. So we initially started with expectations of the club, procedures and assignments. I said, if you want to be a teacher, you have to be a responsible person. There's a lot of expectations that you were going to behave in a certain way and be responsible. We've discussed the Florida Code of Ethics. I gave them the nice little pamphlet talking about special requirements as a teacher that you are expected to perform above the expectation of a typical citizen, and professional conduct. We share our experience logs on their logs, which They all got, when they first started, because I wanted them to feel special, these are their little top clipboards, so this is what they get. And their log, it includes the time that they went, the date that they went, and on the log it includes what did they see, what did they hear, what did they get to do, what did they like, and what did they dislike that they saw. We discussed, because of some of that conversation, we went into intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, talking when they had encountered a child that wasn't, quite participating or whatever, we discussed what you could do and things like that. Praise, redirection, building relationships, that was a big one. And some of them had shared their experiences about how, once the student got to know them, then they started to cooperate a lot more, and that was, of course, praise, praise, praise. And we started the last time with lesson planning. I don't have an example for you because they have until our next meeting to get that done, but I wanted them to experience what goes into planning a lesson for a child. Obviously, on a minuscule level, they got a file folder, and I said, a skill that you've been working on with your kiddos, whether it be sight words or a little math game with manipulatives or something to that effect, they were to create a little file folder game, and so they're gonna bring it at our next meeting to share, so they get to experience what goes into planning something to do with the kiddos. So that's where we're at as of right now. Again, all of the forms and everything has all been created, and it's still being tweaked. I have all these forms showing you from here is not going to do anything, and apparently my links aren't quite working right now. But all of the process of having the teachers that are interested to notify me, some of the teachers wanted 5 tots. So basically the number of teachers that I had that were willing to take that on, I assigned the students to them and gave them their schedule. The schedule is made from the homeroom teacher and the cooperating teacher having an agreement with that. And I think that's about it. Are there any questions?
Sounds like an excellent program.
Well, thank
Excited
you.
about
Great.
it. Thank you, you're doing a great job.
Still being tweaked. We're just starting, so.
Certainly
Yes.
future
That's
teachers
great, yeah.
Have you heard
cultivate
any
that.
parent feedback too from the kids
They're
that
just excited. I
they're
heard it.
excited?
Yes, excited. They're happy that they're getting the experience. We have some of the staff members' children in there as well, and they
Yeah.
love that they're in the program. So just if it could ignite, any little spark, because being in Chiefland, I didn't realize, getting a teaching certified, an education certified teacher in there has, from what I've seen from my experience, has been a little challenging. So if we can grow them right here, that would be awesome.
Well, I remember when I first was in your classroom and you had mentioned about that. You just started it, I think, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You had just
Mhm.
started it.
Yes, we started it after winter break to kind of, the beginning of the year madness, so.
Well, you ran with it. That's
Yes,
awesome.
Yes,
So-
yes.
That's wonderful.
Thank
Thank
you.
For
you.
your passion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it, Ms. Hurst.
My
Great job,
pleasure.
so.
My pleasure. Head back to class.
Yes, ma'am.
Conscientious.
Thank you. We'll move on to Mrs. Lake with her third calculation.
Yeah, these guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mine is not nearly as exciting as that, although
Come on now,
we
sell it,
do need
Kim.
to
Come
grow
on.
some finance people as well, because believe it or not, my department's hard to fill as well. So, but that's exciting. So today we're gonna talk about the third calculation. The third calculation is based off of the second count. We do I believe five surveys a year. And our budget is built on the second calculation, which is the forecast that we do every January. Morgan and myself review, and the superintendent, and we submit that to DOE. Based on that FTE, they build a budget for us. We call that the second calculation. We use those revenues. Then the third calculation comes along with the October count. So it is so important for you guys to be in class in October, make sure your friends are there. That's how we get paid, October and February. So October, the second count kicks off a third calculation. Third calculation comes out and we update our budget. We have recently done the third count in February, and that will kick off a fourth calculation. The fourth calculation it's vital, but those changes come in a prior year adjustment this time next year. Some of them did. So I wanted to review the third calculation because I have all that data and then give you an idea of what we're expecting in the fourth calculation. All right, so here we're just looking at numbers. These are not one-to-one. This is called unweighted FTE. And unweighted FTE is what we're looking at the difference in that from the budget, which would have been our forecast, to our third calculation, which was the second count. You can see for the district FTE, we're down 80.66, and the charters are down 10.23. So if you were to drop this third calculation off DOE's website, it would show Levy County's total unweighted would be much higher. Please remember that unweighted and weighted includes district, charter, and scholarship. So you have to know what's what. If not, you're going to be misled when you look at that calculation and you look at the revenue decline or revenue growth. So I've peeled this back to solely look at the district and what it means for us. So we still have, in this particular count, the second count or the third calculation, that still includes an estimated third count or survey 3 and survey 4. So there's still an estimated component and then there's a real component from the count in October. The bottom shows what the final calculation of last year was, so the actual, how we ended last year in district unweighted FTE, and the difference in the third calculation or the second count. So we're down 66, because remember the top still has some estimators in it, okay? So I've taken, I think you've all seen it, the whole sheet looks like this. I'm gonna chop it up and talk about it piece by piece. So this is what we would refer to above the line. When we say above the line, we're talking about changes in the BSA, so the base student allocation, before you get to the categoricals. So we make a lot of decisions, operational decisions about changes above the line, because everything below the line is usually has a target that you want to spend those revenues on. Some of it's flexible, but it's not as flexible as these dollars. So what we're doing here is comparing the second calculation, which I would have received last July, with the third calculation that we received at the end of this year, which had the October FTE count in that. We see that decline at the top. It's 94.68 because that includes charters, district, and net changes for FES. We see the weighted decline at 113.45. We see in terms of dollars go all the way to the orange because we have a small district factor. That small district factor earns us a little bit more than some of the other districts that don't have this. So our true loss is almost $638,000.
If you remember, that small district factor is what we fought with the small school districts on the change, what used to be sparsity.
And you'll see the difference in our BSA. So the BSA from the state of Florida is the third line. It's $5,139.73. So the BSA is the base student allocation. You multiply that by the weighted. But because the small district factor, we actually have a BSA of $5,282.10. So it's higher. If you'll remember in the past when we had a DCD, I would tell you that that BSA actually declined for Levy County. It actually went down because we were under 1. The multiplier was under 1. Now we're over 1, so this was a great move for small rural districts. Now after you see the loss of $638,000, within that $638,000, there's what we call additional weighted funding. So this is funding, these are FTE that gets an additional weighted that goes for certain programs. AP, isolated schools would be Cedar Key, small district ESE supplements, early graduation, the industry certified career education supplement is the CAPE, and then dual enrollment. So you'll see our additional weighted had a growth of $38,000, mostly for the CTE program. So that's not an operational, that doesn't flow into operations and used for other things. It simply goes back into that program. So when you factor that in, our loss is just under $600,000. So that's where we're sitting above the line. I talk really fast, so I do not mind interruptions from anybody if you want to ask a question, because I do know I talk very much. So this would be the categoricals. If you'll notice, probably would have taken me 2 slides to do the categoricals last year. They've shifted some of those categoricals from below the line to above the line. So this is what's remaining. And you can see in the far right, those changes in those categoricals based on the changes in our FTE, based on the October 2nd count. So we lose an additional 116,000 in categoricals. The only categorical showing growth is the ESE guarantee allocation. So now we are looking at, before FEFP, we're looking at a loss of $715,138. All right, so let's talk a little bit about proration and what happens after categoricals. Proration occurs when the budget is built in the beginning, in the first calculation. The budget's built in the state of Florida. The state of Florida has a constitution that says you cannot exceed that budget. So all of education is in a pie. We all make guesstimates or forecasts on that FTE, and we're hoping some districts go up, some go down, and we have a net and we stay within that budget. If we do not have a net and stay within that budget, the state comes back, gives us our money, and then does a proration to pull it back and balance the budget, and everybody pays a prorated share of that deficit. We do not have a proration. We were estimating a proration in the second calculation. There isn't one. So that tells me that we were able, and it changes, we were able to stay within that budget. That is something that makes us all nervous when we're building a budget and we're looking at changes like scholarships and things that we don't have a firm grasp on what that's going to do to the overall budget. We had a prior year adjustment of $14,119. So this is in one of those surveys after the third calculation, we must have got more FTE. So they come back and they pay us for that. So that would have been prior year. Then we have the family empowerment scholarships. The scholarships are the things that keep me up at night. So this year we've seen a growth between what we budgeted in 3.2. Now it's 3.4, so we've had more of a decline of the 230, 272. So if you were to pull the third calculation from the state of Florida, from DOE's website, you would see that they show Levy County only having that loss of a little over $700,000. That's because the changes of the scholarships are built in the larger bit of the budget. But it's coming off the back of the district. It's not coming, so you've got to factor that in. That's a budget item. So we budgeted $230,000 less than what we're having removed. The state came along with a state-funded discretionary supplement to help offset any miscalculation in those FTEs that we're going to be shifting to FES. So that came and that balanced some of that. And then we have prior year adjustments for scholarships. Personally, I would love to never have anything in that line because what's happened is last year we paid almost $75,000 more than we should have for scholarships that they're just now giving us back money. Those were kids in our classroom that we paid money somewhere else. So we are getting that back again. That's last year's adjustment to scholarships. That brings us to $813,000.
This is, if you remember, where we talked about where we were about 30 kids where we had butts in the seats. So for the October and February count, we shared that with DOE. DOE showed them to be sitting in a private school somewhere collecting a voucher, or the private school was collecting a voucher. And so there was some mistrust between DOE and what the districts were saying. So we've kind of been banging this gong. It's been a focus of NEFAC because that figure is a little bit higher in Suwannee County, for example. It's about 75 kids that they've been tracking, so that they've had both survey counts in October and February that they are not being funded on.
All right, so the next slide. Okay, so this is the amount, the 781,202 is what you would see in the third calculation if you were to draw it down from DOE, and that includes another decline in class size reduction of 109,000. And that's because the FES scholarships are just an estimate and a budgeted item. They don't hit us until the third calculation. But we still have to budget them nonetheless. And you'll see when I roll out next year's budget, we do that by doing a revenue and an expenditure that offset each other for what we think those scholarships will be. So when you factor in FES, we're looking at $923,239. That's the difference between what was budgeted in the second calculation and what we have received in the third calculation. The $781,202 is gonna affect cash flow. That is a decrease in payments that we're receiving from the state of Florida. And the difference is just built up of the change in the FES, the prior year adjustment, and then the prior year adjustment for scholarships.
Ms. Lake, excuse me, quick question. Class size reduction, and that categorical, what does that mean? What is that?
That's a state categorical. Class size reduction is another categorical for helping offset class size to keep class.
Right, is this dollar amount the money, the fines that are paid for?
No. These are our revenues.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
no.
Okay,
These are
I
our
got you,
revenues.
I
Good
got you.
question. Nope, these are our revenues.
Okay. Yeah,
And because our weighted FTE fell, our class size fell by
Gotcha.
almost 110,000.
Gotcha.
No change in local, which we wouldn't have any change in local. Local does not get impacted when you do any of these calculations. All right, does anybody have any questions about the third before I talk about the estimate for the fourth? All right, there will be a quiz.
Man,
All
you
right.
should have seen their eyes right
Like, why are we here?
All right.
there. Picked the wrong day, gentlemen.
I guess I didn't, are they from Bronson?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so am I, so you've got this.
It's easy when you're from Bronson.
So, based on the February count, and we're gonna assume every kid came to school during that window, we still had a decline, an additional about 12 for the district and almost 1 for the charter and growth. So if you compare what I'm estimating for the fourth count, which has not dropped yet, versus what we budgeted, you're gonna see overall to the district a loss of around 93 unweighted FTE. This amount could be higher. I did my best to estimate it because right now I don't have the weighted FTE. The weighted FTE will cause these numbers to go up. But we're looking at roughly around another 110,000 loss in the fourth. And that could be offset by changes in the categoricals. This is just looking at above the line. All right, let's just talk just for a second about scholarships. While I have a captive audience, we'll talk about 2 pressures that we're facing in the budget that just do not seem to be letting their foot off the gas. One of those is growth in scholarships. So in 2004 or thereabouts, we started with the McKay. And you see how McKay, that's all a trend to McKay until you get to about, 1920 school year, and you see the first year of FES. And you see it start to go back up. It had kind of flattened out, even declined for the district, and starts going back up. Then all the combined scholarships are that high. In 22, we brought on Gardner, FES. There were a couple more that they all threw into the FEFP that used to ride along outside the FEFP. Now 24, I had to take out, because this is based on dollars, not on FTE. It's based on dollars. So I had to pull out the add back discretionary pot of money that the state gave so that you can see the true growth in FES scholarships. And you can see between the end of the school year in 16-17 versus February, our enrollment for scholarships is up 130%. Now, some of these things we can't control. A lot of this growth and change is just based on statutes and changes in statutes.
So
But
Ms.
it's
Lake,
important to say.
you're minusing out this fee up here, this amount up here that you just said on the 700,
Nope.
you're
Go to
minusing
your
out.
scholarship line, that shows $3,429,862. I am not reducing it by the $616,903.
Okay,
It's the true
It's the tr-
cost of scholarships. So look at it another way.
Mhm.
If we look at the total loss since 2004, it's almost 16 million. That total loss is equal to 47% of our current net state FEFP. The average increase in FES we've seen since it was created is almost 46%. The current loss for this year is 10% of our current net state FEFP. And net state FEFP would be the amount prior to reducing for scholarships and adding in local dollars. So we're simply looking at state dollars here. All right, homeschool is another big area that we're losing students, or students are choosing to go. And you can see during that same time period, you've seen the enrollment in homeschool up almost 300, so 76%. And what's interesting is as of March 15th, homeschool enrollment is equal to our largest elementary school. We have Chiefland Elementary sitting at 690, and we have Bronson Middle High at 509, so our homeschoolers actually exceed our Bronson Middle High School. Doesn't mean they're all from Bronson, doesn't even mean they're all eligible to go into a high school. I'm just looking at the total. I did not break down the age levels or grade levels of them. And then finally, I want to estimate, do anybody have any questions about those couple slides? I want to estimate the impact to the financial condition ratio or our fund balance based on those changes in the third calculation and anticipated changes in the fourth calculation. You can see that our beginning fund balance going into this year is a little over 10 million, which would have included assigned, unassigned, and reserve funding. You see our revenue and our expenditures where I think we'll end up. And you can see at the end, it looks like our assigned and unassigned will show about $1 million, a loss, a little over $1 million to that fund balance. We have the fund balance to cover that. We were anticipating somewhat of a deficit based on the size of the negotiated compensation package we did this year. So that, none of this was surprising to me, but we always want to look and see where we're going to end up, because we know for board we have to stay at 5, and for state we have to stay at 3. So it's always, I'm wanting to track that and see where we're going with that. Does anybody have any questions?
I think that's what you predicted way back when they first started talking about the rolling everything into the BSA. Way back then, this is the amount that you
It's pretty close.
estimated.
I did not talk about the first calculation because I'm waiting for everything to be signed and done, and probably superintendent can speak a little bit more to what he's hearing, but I think we're optimistic about the growth in FRS this year. It looks to be very minor compared to prior years. We're looking at a BSA growth for the district, around $195 after we do our GCD. We still have some challenges to overcome. We're looking at a scholarship level that I think goes up into over 4 million. So it's pretty big, 4.7 million. This year we forecasted a flat district FTE. So the increase, because the way the state works, they kind of give us some models. You have to stay within that model. We gave the growth to FES. The risk in that is that that money follows FES, and then we have to wait till the next year to get it back. The risk is the good risk is we get a whole bunch of new students, but we don't have money to pay for them until the third calculation, and pray there's no proration. So there's all these things that we look at when we're devising the forecast and the budget. There's so many moving parts.
Thank you, Ms. Lake.
All right.
Very, very much.
Thank
I
you,
don't
Ms.
know how you keep all them in your head at one time. We'll call Dr. Hanlon and Mrs. Eastman up for the instructional materials plan.
Just my backup, she's gonna stay
Oh.
Good morning.
morning.
We come today to you to talk about textbook adoption. Our 30-day window has passed for the science and social studies, for anybody to file any petitions in regards to that textbook adoption, and no petitions were filed. So now we're moving forward with the adoption of the instructional materials plan that is in your documents for review. So we are coming today so we can move forward with our official vote to adopt our science and social studies curriculum with McGraw-Hill.
How do you like it?
I like it. I do. I like it. I've had one session already of mapping with our civics and world history teachers utilizing it. Mrs. Eastman and I are both going to meet with the vendor to talk about the online platform, and we're planning for training during pre-planning for the science and social studies teachers to be well versed in the curriculum, and we're well underway with mapping it in K-12.
And then we maintain this for 4 to 5 years?
So social studies adoption, we're going to do is the 4 years, so
4
we're back on our
years.
cycle, and
Okay.
then science will be 5 years.
5
Right.
years.
Mhm.
Okay.
And ELA will probably be coming.
Yes, they've moved ELA up, so it should be, we'll be going through this process again next year for ELA. And intervention of reading in K3 and intervention in math of K4 per state statute.
Right.
I make a motion
Okay.
to adopt
Second.
instructional materials.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Handel and Mrs. Eastman. Am I missing anything yet? Nope. And we have Mrs. Oberst for the adoption of the food services policy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As far as the adoption, I've received no questions, nothing. Anybody else heard anything, have any questions? We'll continue to be out there for another couple weeks. And with your permission, I just wanted to give you a quick update on what I was asked last week about the lettuce, or about the funds for the disadvantaged farmers.
Yes.
Just a quick, I brought you all some salads that were made with lettuce that was actually picked yesterday and sent directly to our schools within 2 hours. So we were the first to actually take advantage of the grant. And this is what it looks like. It's actually aquaponics, I'll get it right, aquaponics, which is where the little fish swim underneath and the little roots come down. So this is, we got cases of these, there's 30 in a case. But what's nice about it is it's actually like 99% usable, to where we'll just cut this little tip off at the bottom and we'll be able to use all of this instead of like in a grocery store where you have the stock and everything inside of it. So, it came from it was about an hour and a half away in North Florida. And he delivered it yesterday by 9 o'clock, so they cut it first thing in the morning. He threw it on the truck and brought it here. Like I said, we were actually the one and only that took advantage of this until I called Gilchrist County, and she jumped on the bandwagon since she found out it was going to come through Gilchrist to here. So we were the only two that actually received the first round of lettuce. But anyway, your salads are made with that, so I wanted to share that with you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
For
much.
those of you that were a little disappointed, there are chicken and biscuits on your way out. to kind of help us out.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
To offset is healthy, right? Everything is healthy that is served through.
Yes, it is.
That's right, see?
Move on.
Nutritious and delicious.
Item 9, Mr. Bennett. Item 9 and 10.
Back to back.
Morning.
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 Members of the board, we've had progress. A little rare, but we've had progress. So before I get into the details, I do want to take just a moment to publicly thank Tracy Wilkerson and Jessica Manning from the Northeast Florida Educational Consortium. They have been a wonderful support of our district as we go through this procurement process with E-rate. And I do also want to emphasize to the board that Mr. Joseph Locke in our department has been a wonderful, wonderful asset for us all during this process. So kudos to him in particular. So the board has before you the internet services contract. A couple weeks ago, you approved the winning bid for AT&T for internet services. And so this is that contract. So just for the benefit of our audience, just like we as members of the public have to have a contract for internet services at our home, we as a district have to have contracts for internet services in our schools. So this is the first of two that does that. This is the contract that brings the internet from the outside world to our district network hub here at the district office.
So this contract that you have before you is a 24-month or 2-year contract. It does include the opportunity for 3 12-month extensions at the same rates. When we went out to bid, we had wanted to improve our service a little bit, and so this contract does reflect that, and it's going to allow us to go from a 4 gigabyte bandwidth to a 6 gigabyte bandwidth. And the total cost before we get reimbursement goes from $3,567 per month down to $2,682.24 per month. So that's a savings to the district of $884.76. Now that is before the E-rate discount, and as a reminder, since this is processed through the FCC's E-rate program, that actually we'll get reimbursed for 90% of that cost. So what I would ask, if the board is in agreement, is I feel this is a good contract, and I would recommend that we have a motion to approve the contract.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes for that contract.
Thank you. I also wanted to give you all an update on the WAN services. Now, you may recall at our last meeting, we recommended and the board approved us pursuing an extension, an allowable extension under our current contract. Now, this is the contract, again, for the public, that takes the internet from here at the district office and distributes it to all of our schools, okay? So there's 2 contracts. They both kind of work the same way, but just for different pieces of the piping system. So where we're at with that is I shared with you all in your board documents that we did request the extension, and I can report that AT&T has picked up that, acknowledged it, and has placed the order for the extension. Now, it varies a little bit, but there may be a chance that they ask us to complete a countersigned letter at some point, in which case I would bring that back before you at a later date. But this was sufficient for us to proceed with filing through the E-rate program, and I just wanted to report that is in process, and we are moving forward with that extension that we discussed previously. So, are there any questions about any of that?
Do we have a permanent representative? Didn't you talk a little bit about that last time?
We did talk about that last time. So we had the same sales representative for quite a few years. His name was Ish. And here in this cycle, to start this cycle, we did have a new sales representative. I will say we had a couple web meetings with that new representative. His name is Anthony Dominguez. He met with us a couple times last week virtually. And we did get some good information for him, so I think that relationship is building.
And he'll stick around a while?
I hope so.
Board,
Thank you.
do we have to vote on this one?
No,
Yes, we do?
no.
Oh,
This
okay.
this was just informational on where we are in the process.
Okay. Thank you,
We
Mr.
approved it last.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. All right. I will move on to public comments, and maybe I can
That's y'all.
twist the arms of the visitors that we have here today from Ms. Schuler's class, right? During our board comments, would you like to say your name and then anything about what you've seen so far of the meeting? What you like, dislike?
She didn't tell y'all about the 5-minute speech?
I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
I have the rubric right here to grade you guys.
Yeah.
Kirk, you're up first.
it'd be great to hear from you. We don't get many visitors, so this is great.
Oh, you got to stand up, Kurt. You call us the in Bronx and come on.
Yeah, man.
My name is Kirkland. We've been talking about the teachers of tomorrow.
Oh, you're taking really good notes. So what's your assignment? What brought you here?
Just to take notes.
All right, all right.
Take notes and ask questions. So I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been in council for?
I was elected to the board in 2020, and then what we do as a board is the newbies, which I was a newbie, we rotate, so I would be sitting in Mrs. Brookins' place, and then you just work your way up, and It's fair to every board member, and then you get your position as vice chair, which Mr. Asbell is now, and that's how I got to be chair this year.
And tell us your name,
Oh, my name's Adrian Brown.
Adrian.
Thank
Brown.
you for the question. Good question.
All right.
My name is Freddie Freeman. I'm a senior at Brunson. I also have a question for you too.
Yes, sir.
Why did you decide to join or run for election?
Why did I decide?
Yes, ma'am.
I decided back when my son graduated from Chiefland High School. I spent a lot of time in the school volunteering and as room mom, and I was part of the PTO. I was part of the SAT committee, and then also part of district. They call it a DAT committee. And I know I only had one son, but pretty much the class before him, after him, kind of felt like all my children. So when he was done with high school, I was approached by some dear friends and sat down with my family, discussed it, and said, I think I want to stay involved as much as I possibly can. And that's how we came to the decision, and that's how I ran.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Yes, ma'am.
So what do you think about the meeting so far? I have to ask you that.
Pretty interesting. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't understand I didn't understand that part, but.
Nobody does but Miss Lake.
She'll sit down with you, though, and do a one-on-one.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
she will.
She'd love
If you-
to.
I have no clue.
Well, thank
Freddie's got it. You can look at him and tell Freddie's got it. That's why his middle name is Finance, Freddie, Finance.
Well, thank you for being here. You know, it's great. When I was going through school, not in Florida, but we had what was called a junior school board. And that's 5 students were picked among their peers and teachers to be part of the board meetings and then give their input. And I mean, all of you are living it. You know what it's like to walk through the halls and be in the classrooms every day. And sometimes it's good to hear from you, your perspective, your eyes, you know? So I think it's really, really great that you're here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Public comments is done, and we'll go to board minutes, item 12.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes for the minutes. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Agenda item 13. Mrs. Brookins, would you like to start?
No, all my questions have been answered, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Whitehurst.
All my questions are answered. Thank you.
Mrs.
All mine
Clemency.
were answered.
You're not. They've all been answered.
Thank you.
Move approval of the consent.
Yeah, move approval. I was thinking of something, but it won't come to me right now, but Mr. Cowart and I spoke yesterday as well. Is there a motion for approval of the
Move.
consent agenda?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes for the consent agenda. Item 14, the finance.
I make a motion to approve the finance.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
No, I have to refuse voting on, there's on the bids, annual bids, and I've signed my form, right, my correct form, legal form, and I will not be voting on that.
Yes, ma'am. So that will be the extension of the annual bids for petroleum and liquid propane.
That's
Board
correct.
members. Do I have a motion
Ms.
for the
Clemente.
finance?
Ms. Clemente made a motion.
We'll have a motion in a second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And we will move over to item 15, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. So, appreciate board members. So last week at the fair, so we were able to purchase 2 animals, 2 hogs, one from Williston Middle High School. We purchased ninth grader, Miss Emma Evans. So she is well-rounded, so cheerleader, so active in FFA, so and a really good student. And then we were also able to purchase a hog from Chiefland Middle High School, Cody Baxley, so 10th grader, so really another really good student. So there, so we both those communities appreciate you guys being involved, and I know you were involved with all of your home communities and spread throughout Levy County. It was a really successful day, and I know Mr. Whitehurst, so Miss Boyle and Mr. Asbell were really active over there. So, and I know Miss Brookins, so was active with the Chiefland. So, and I appreciate Miss Clemenzy's help. So with the Yankeetown animal, I would just call at this time. So just a nice shout out to you approved in the consent agenda. So a contract. Actually, so that's coming up with Yankeetown and the resurfacing, and just would like to be on the record, so not to steal Ms. Clemency's thunder, but it's a really, really unique thing that whole school has gotten together and has given up their school recognition funding to help resurface that playing surface there out in between the cafeteria and the middle school. So I just really think it's a really unique thing, and I think there's a lot of great things going on there at Yankeetown, and I wanted to kind of shout that out. And then I appreciate the young men, so appreciate you guys being here. So it's good to have Eagles in the house representing. So being a former Eagle, and or not a former Eagle, but being an alumni of there, and just appreciate you guys, and appreciate Miss Schuler having you guys have this assignment and get involved. So and kind of take an active role in this. So. Other than that, we're about to be in the season of testing, so you'll see Miss Lewis has already left us to go and get on a state assessment. It's that time. There's lots of busy things. So as we hit there, and I know there was OH demos yesterday and all the things that we're wrapping up and coming in for our landing in the spring. So, but also a nice little shout out. So just appreciate being able to go over to Williston-L and give out a impact award to a employee who's going above and beyond, Miss Glorimar, so who's one of our ESOL aides over there. So was a part of that process yesterday, and just to really appreciate her efforts of going above and beyond there. So, and looking forward to later today. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Mrs. Brookins?
Well, there's so many wonderful things happening at Chiefland schools, and we're gonna find that out when we all go visit after our board meeting, so I'm gonna save all those comments, and we're all gonna learn together. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Whitehurst?
Certainly had a good week at the fair. Appreciate having the days off for the kids. It certainly it's a stressful thing. It's fun but stressful, so it's also nice not them having the homework and all that pile up while they're over there trying to get their animals and all that going. As Mr. Cowart touched on, we had the OH demo, and I want to kind of talk a little bit about what Williston did. The Williston Middle had a winner in the consumer, Cardi Bertrand and Peyton Andrews. Marketing, Audrey Jorn and Mabry Whitehurst. Production, Collins McGowan. Middle school landscaping, second place, Kylie Wise and Kaylee Bellamy. And then high school artistic, third place, Annabelle Whitehurst and Kylie Phillips. And high school marketing also competed with Cardi Bellamy, marketing, Brooke Shancy and Faith Boggs, and high school consumer, Kai Gowan and Whitley Woodford. So had that, and also the vet assisting team competed and placed 10th in the state. So that was their first year competing. So that's certainly exciting for the Miss Harris and the bunch there. So, and sports in Williston, everything's going good. Got the spring sports, and baseball and softball, and so they're all the fun things. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehurst. Mrs. Clemency?
I wanted to say I'm so glad you guys are here this morning too, and I think you should take Ms. Boyle up on her idea of a junior board meeting. I think that's a great idea. I love the thought of a junior school board team. Like Mr. Cowart said, we're going to go down to Yankeetown after Chiefland today to celebrate the staff with an impact award for donating their money back, which is just huge, and there's just such good things going on. in Yankeetown. That could be a vacation, like I've said before, that these teachers have given back for their school. We did lose an ag teacher, but in the whole spirit of what I just said, Ms. Richardson and Valano are stepping up and gonna fill those shoes until the end of the year, and I think someone's in line for next year, a great candidate. So other than that, Ms. Westfall didn't lose anyone after staff allocation, which may be the first time, Mr. Cowart. But that, certainly since I've been on the board, it's just a lot of great things going on in Yankeetown. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Clemency. Mr. Asbell.
Thank you. It's good to see you men here today. Represent, Freddie, always happy, man. It's always, and Kirk's been this height since he was in the 5th grade. It's about like you, Mr. Whitehurst. No, but these some good guys right here, and I'm glad to see, and I'm glad Miss Schuler sends y'all over here to us. I think we touched on a little bit. I'm old now, and I can say this with great pride. I probably started going to the Swanee River Fair 50 years ago when I was a little bitty kid. And I went from being a little bitty kid that was watching it on the outside to a participant to just fresh out to now an old guy that goes over there. And there's something remarkable that happens over there. And we had some people here earlier today that they ought to be in FFA and 4-H at that fair because you don't see that cussing. You don't see that, I'm going to do this, and you don't see that carrying away. What you see a lot of is, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. How can I help? What can I do? And what's really amazing, and we do it, it's a joking thing because we all love our Levy County schools, but you'll see, hey, now, you got to support this Bronson kid. Hey, you got to support this Williston kid. And we do that. We had tons of folks from other towns in our county helping each other, either with money or with, hey, you need help with this animal. Hey, you need it. Can I move that for you? Oh, you need so-and-so? Even if it was, let me go get you a drink. It's cooperation. It's teaching. It is a great time of teaching as far as I'm concerned. And I'm like Mr. Whitehurst. I was glad our kids had that time off from school where they didn't have to go, man, when I get back, I'm going to have to catch up on what I missed. Because that's a job for those kids. And I think it's important that we continue that support. And that's wonderful. Then this is a rarity, Miss Boyle, so be ready. Ordinarily, I get here and I sit here and tell you about just how great Bronson is. Well, I have beat that horse a long time. And everybody here knows how great Bronson is. Like, what kids are here? Bronson. Freddie understood all the finance stuff. Bronson. Right? The Eagles always fly high. So today, I want to talk about another school. Last night, I was fortunate. I went to the Bronson Cedar Key baseball game. And I saw something quite remarkable. Cedar Key came out on the short end of that stick. They played a great game. Cedar Key lost. Bronson won. Bronson coaches corner up their team and start pointing out all the things they did wrong in that game. And you need to do better. Now, we're not talking about just little victory. We're talking about win by like 9 runs. At the same time, the Cedar Key coaches never raised their voice. Told those kids in losing how good they had done. And they showed great sportsmanship. And I was impressed with just the way Cedar Key may have lost that game, but they won the bigger picture. Because it's really about teaching kids and it's about reaching kids. It's not about tearing you down. It's about building you up. And I saw the Cedar Key coaches building up players. There was never any, y'all boys have been in sports. Anybody that's been in sports knows coaches get fired up. They may use some words. They may call you bad things. That didn't happen with the Cedar Key people. Cedar Key coaches, the closest it came was one of the coaches says, son, where are you throwing that ball? Wasn't that he wasn't passionate. It wasn't that he didn't want to win. It wasn't that he wasn't trying to get his point across. It was they were doing it the right way. And Cedar Key, I've seen them do it on other sports. They deserve to be complimented on that, and they are doing it the right way. And I was very impressed last night.
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for saying that. And I will tell everyone to watch the board meeting and listen to you.
No,
Instead
don't
of
do that
being-
because it's.
No, I will let them hear it straight from you.
Go Eagles.
Straight from you.
moment of
It's
weakness.
very much.
It's a moment of weakness.
I thought you were going to talk about 4-H for a minute. I was
No,
worried.
I'm just telling you. No, we don't talk, you know.
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna start out on to me, it's a little bit sad, and I know most of you can't be in the room when we sit here as a board during the expulsions. And I remember first coming into the seat, somebody said to me, one of the toughest things that you're ever gonna go through as a board member are the expulsions. And that person was absolutely correct. But what I want to say as a board member, as part of this board, I sit here and sometimes it's like we read each other's minds because we can't talk to each other about it, obviously. And just from the questions that each board member asks, they are all about the student. And I know we have to protect everybody, the teachers. But over these years, we may not always agree with Mr. Superintendent's recommendation. And I think that's okay, because I think we're here to ask those questions. And sometimes we know the students, sometimes we don't. But if we don't ask the questions, I don't think that's giving that child everything that we can possibly give them before they get to us here. So I just want to say thank you, because I really think on those expulsions that I've seen us all work together as a whole, so I wanted to say that. I wanted something that was passed to me last meeting within 2 minutes out of my head, but there is a program that came from Cedar Key SAC Committee, the Student Advisory Committee, and it was Miss Marjorie McGee who initiated the talks, and they decided that they would like to get a bunch of volunteers from the community to come in and read to the kids. And if you want to look up the full story, it's in the Cedar Key News, but it has been a great outpouring of retirees, even the people that come just for the winter time from up north, they come to Cedar Key. They're coming in and they're reading to all the grade levels. And they, even in the little write-up, they gave their feelings about reading for the kids and the kids coming up to them and hugging them. And it has brightened their day to just come to the school. And at the last SAC meeting, we were talking about even, gosh, wouldn't this be a great idea to maybe mentor it based on sports? So put out volunteers, the volunteers get vetted, of course. And I mean, track and field is such a huge sport, you need volunteers to man each type of event. So those retirees and so forth, possibly it can go, around to the other schools, and then at the big meets and everything, we have enough volunteers to help the kids. And I think it just brings the community into the kids too, because they need to meet them. So I wanted to mention her and how well that's going. And today, I know this is a lot, so I'm sorry, bear with me. There was a senior at Cedar Key who a couple years ago came up with the idea of pretty much, what am I going to do as a senior? What am I going to leave behind? And he thought of cedar trees, planting trees. And today was the day, so this student initiated with other students to take seedlings from a cedar tree in Cedar Key. And this cedar tree has been there for a very, very long time. And so he took the seedlings and he grew those seedlings, and then was able to get with the community and the commissioners and the mayor, and they went around this morning around the city and on the school grounds, and they were able to plant those seedlings. And there was about 200 trees that they were planting today. So you'll probably read that and see the pictures, but this is primarily from that one student and what he wanted to leave behind for the school. So I thought that was really great. And if you will also keep Mr. Kaysen, Leo Kaysen, I'm sure most of you in this room knew him a lot longer than I did, but he passed away, and keep his family in your prayers. He was, to me, instrumental in giving back to the kids, especially at fair. It was the first time in 4 years that I hadn't sat next to him at the fair, so I called him up during lunch break, which was great, and just, told him it was going great and missed him sitting there. But he raised, through going to friends and family, he definitely raised a lot of money for the kids at fair, and he was involved. But I know he's in a happy place, and he's with Mrs. But if you'll just keep them in your prayers, I would appreciate that. Great man to this community. And I think I'm done. Thank you for your patience. If there's any other business, we'll go to Chief Lind Middle High School right now for our school visit.
High school.
And thank you again. Meeting adjourned.